All right, we got a very special guest on today's show and today's pod. It's none other than Joseph Woll, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Joseph, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Happy to be on the show. So thanks for having me.
It is phenomenal to get you on. What have you been up to? I mean, time does fly. It seems like just yesterday the season ended for the Marlies, season ended for the Maple Leafs. But what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, like you said, it seems like the past couple of weeks have gone pretty quickly. I had a week of kind of hanging out in Toronto. Then I went back home to St. Louis for a week, and then now I'm back in Toronto. So a little bit of back and forth for me. I have a couple trips lined up that I'm flying out of Toronto for, so I need to be here to fly out.
What's the 411? Where are you headed, buddy?
Yeah, I'm headed to. So I have a couple like personal trips and I have a couple weddings.
Oh,
Going to Zion National Park, and then I have a trip out to the Alps. And then I have a few weddings for some of my buddies. So it's kind of all lined
Nice.
up here in the next month. So it can be a busy month for me.
Sounds like a nice little summer. I'm sure your hair will look as perfect as it does today. Thanks for joining us, Walsey. Hey, buddy, first of all, hats off to you, man. I know what it's like to, first of all, how hard it can be to play in that market. Second of all, to be a goaltender in that market. But then you take it a step further and you come in kind of mid-season, you come in during the playoffs and perform under all of that umbrella of what it's like in that market and you perform. So hats off to you, man. Tell us a little bit what it's like this year to come in, especially during the playoffs and have that jersey on and be in that environment.
Yeah, I mean it was a special moment for me, especially towards the end of the season, getting into the playoffs and stuff like that. I think it's something you dream of growing up as a kid. So it felt like the whole year was I was continually growing in different areas in my game, and it felt like it all kind of came together at the end. And I was really happy to get that opportunity and try to help the team as best as I could.
and that was the impeccable part about this story, Joseph, is just sort of how everything clicked this season, right? Like you had good seasons prior, but then like the AHL it clicked, you're a bit banged up, the NHL it clicked, and then next thing you know, you're the starting goalie for the final game of the Maple Leaf season. It's just crazy how time flies. But what clicked for you mentally, physically, like in your game?
Uh, truthfully, there's a lot of different things. I think, especially over my pro career so far, I've been fortunate to be able to learn a lot, and a lot of it's come through, some different failures and stuff I've had, and really feel though that these past, 4 years have been huge learning experiences, and I think this year I just, had a different switch of, now it's time to do what I've dreamt of, and I feel like I'm prepared, and now is really just going out and doing what I've learned, and understanding that I'm going to continue to learn. So I think from a technical standpoint of very specific goaltending things, to kind of the mental sphere of the game, I think I had very clear intention in both areas this year.
Sure. Well, it's no secret there's a bit of a jam with the goaltending situation in Toronto, and that'll sort itself out. I'm sure you're just kind of focusing on your own game and your own development. But tell us what it's like to get up there with those other two goalies and the relationship you have and learning from them.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was lucky enough to play with both Murr and Sammy this year, and both guys treated me very well, and it was awesome to be a part of that goalie group. And eventually we had all three of us kind of hanging out up there, and obviously it's competitive. You're competing against each other, but I think both of them made me feel very comfortable. And like I said before, over the past few years, I've been pretty fortunate to have some guys ahead of me that I've been able to learn from. So any experience I get with those guys, also in the past of having Freddie and Jack Campbell here has been awesome for me.
Take us back to game 3 against the Florida Panthers. Sammy goes down, I believe, in the second period. What's going through your head? Like, I always wonder from a goalie's perspective, like how you get in that mindset. Like for me, I'd be thinking about the club after the game, like especially when you know, like you're not supposed to play, you're not starting. Like, what are you thinking about in that moment? It's the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's like, oh shit, you look at the coach, you're going into the game.
Yeah, well, I think, the best thing you can do is try to approach each game like you are playing, and it can be difficult to stay in that mindset, if you haven't played for a while, but I think that's the best preparation you can do, and everything outside of that you don't really have control over, and yeah, it's definitely a big switch of mindset, going from sitting on the bench to all of a sudden being thrown in, and then being on the power play especially, and yeah, again, I think it's stuff I've learned all season, and just being able to kind of switch it on, and understand that this is where I'm at now, and I know what I have to do, and I trust myself to be in that moment. So for me, I think it was just about enjoying it as best as I could.
Is that every goalie's nightmare, just in general, getting tossed in unexpectedly, cold as could be?
Yeah, it's not the best of circumstance. But I think one thing I really learned this year is, um, there's never really a perfect circumstance. I think, I had different experiences throughout the season where, you're not always going to feel like you're 100% prepared, or, like there's going to be different things each game that are going to be trying to pull you out of your focus. And, regardless of what it is, if it's something as simple as I didn't get a good night's sleep last night, or, something as tough as being thrown in, cold off the bench into a PK. I think it is all mental, and understand that, I know what to do, and I know how to focus is what's important to me.
Early on, that's the one thing I've really noticed about you, man. Like you're so stoic, you're so chill. It's like you're in a rocking chair. Like, was that something that you always had in your game, or was that something you had to develop, over time, where it's like you can't let that goal bother you. You got to move on and have like the memory of a goldfish.
Yeah, I think for a lot of my career, I was really trying to find my comfort zone with how I wanted to be when I was playing, and I had times where I was a little too emotional, and then times where I was a little too uninvolved, a little too remote, and too stoic in a way. And I think that really comes with experience and having good mentors, and I've had great coaches. I think from the time I came in, I was able to work with John Elkin, and he talked to me a lot about the importance of stoicism, and then I was able to see that in someone like Freddie Anderson, who I think is the perfect example of that, of being calm under pressure, and not changing based on what the outcomes or the results are. So I think that's something I saw kind of early in my pro career, that something I wanted to adapt to my game, and I think it's very important. It's like the other important positions in sports, like quarterback, a goalie in hockey, like these different things where you have the ability to change the game. I think it's paramount to be stoic. Like you want to be confident for your team regardless of what the situation is.
Yeah, I played with Freddie, and he had that in spades for sure. And it looks like you're adopting that well. This year, you've kind of, you've thrust yourself into that position, and it's a great thing for the organization and for everyone that's been developing you and hoping that you'll be ready soon. It seems like you've taken a huge jump this year. Your numbers in the American League are dominant. You come up and you look prepared. What do you attribute that to in the last, say, 10, 12 months?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of different things. Again, over the course of these 4 years I've been pro, I've learned a lot of different things technically, learned a lot of different things mentally. I think maybe the big switch for this year was, maybe I didn't completely believe that I had the ability to play in the NHL, and I think this year I kind of took it upon myself to force it to happen, to really believe, regardless of what the outcomes are, did I have the ability to do this? And I think that served me well over the course of the season, maintaining a good growth mindset and staying, very in the moment and not getting, too far ahead or looking too far into the past. And then also, I think, surrounding goalie specifically, outside of kind of the mental area of the game, we've got some awesome coaches, spending time with Hanu, Curtis and John Elkin and, Steve Briere over the past couple of years. But I think, especially this year, my time spent with the goalie coaches was very important. I felt like, I really grew my game. I feel like I have a good idea of, how I need to play now, more so than any other time in my career, where I was kind of, pinballing between styles of play, and it really just feels like I'm going out and playing my kind of game now.
So here's the big time question for you. Do you think you're ready to be a full-time NHL goalie as early as the fall here?
Yeah, I believe that, and that's something that I've worked hard to be able to believe and to have faith in. And yeah, I think, understanding, my ability and how much work I put into, the mental part of the game and the physical part on the ice. I have all the confidence in the world in myself, and that's the goal, is to be with the Leafs and, to help them win and to help them win a Stanley Cup. So I'm going to continue to pursue that goal.
Woolsey, I'm impressed to hear you talk about the mental side of the game. I've always said that that's something that has been lacking with the millions of dollars and every machines and all the stuff they put into the physical, attributes of these players. The mental side seems to be, something that isn't quite caught up as much. And have you learned in your 4 years of pro, it sounds as you speak, that that's as big as anything, especially for a goaltender. You hone that, all the performance, comes with that, obviously.
Yeah. Not to discount the the physical part of the game, and it's important to have ability, and it's important to round out that part of your game. But it's I really have come to see how important the mental side of the game is, and without that, it doesn't matter how much ability or talent you have. If you're not dialed in that part and actively taking steps to improve that, I think it's a real harness for your game. And I look at all the greatest athletes and great performers, and how elite they are in their mindset. So I think my first year pro here, I didn't have as great of a year as I was hoping, and that was kind of the catalyst to spend more time developing that side of the game. And I feel like this season, more than any other time in my life, I've put importance into that and understood how important and how vital that is to success.
As someone from St. Louis, what is it like to play in the beautiful city of Toronto, especially when you're having success? Like, it's a different animal, being a goalie specifically in this market, but certainly being covered on a daily basis, especially when you're in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and especially when you're in a round for the first time in 19 years, right?
Yeah. The the funny thing about this is this past year I haven't really had social media.
I noticed.
Yeah, so I don't really notice that much.
That's sick.
I don't notice, the hype around it. It allows me to just stay focused on, like, here's the team, here's the locker room. We're going out each day, and we're playing hockey. And I think that that ended up serving me very well, as the playoffs came around, because the only hype was hype that I gave it, or hype that I felt from my teammates, just with having no interaction with the media or anything.